Hola. Buenas. Mi nombre es...
My name is Franklin Buitrón. I'm part of the GeneXus USA team, and I have been working in mobile applications this year. And the title of this is From USA to Uruguay. And when I was asked to give the title for this presentation, I said, okay, the title will be From USA to Uruguay. But now that I'm here, I need to explain why am I saying from the US to Uruguay. Does this mean that there's an absolute truth here? Well, actually what I did was I had a haircut and I tried to appear as a hipster and to bring the 10 commandments to tell you how to develop mobile applications. But actually, I might end up looking like the hangover guy. But the point is not so much seeing Alan, but I don't want to tell you how you need to build your applications or do your projects. What I want is to tell you a story, at least my story, where we will see 3 projects for mobile applications, and we will see what we learned during these projects. It doesn't have to be the same that you will learn when you do your own projects, but maybe if you see the problems or the advantages that we had, you might relate to this, and it will be a win-win situation. The applications that we will mention here are Handed Driver, Ticket Beagles, and Revenue Wile. And they're a success case of our company. They are in stores. The client who hired us is happy with them. And there are users already using it in their devices. What do these applications have in common? All 3 have been built with GeneXus, but here I will stop and try to tell you why we built them with GeneXus. We're not forced to use GeneXus as a development team. It's neither easier nor more difficult. And actually, none of our customers required us to use GeneXus, but we used it because within all of the available tools that we as developers have, this tool allows us to cover a wide variety of problems and gives us power to solve every requirement in every context. So this will be a story, and we will be telling it chronologically, because Handed Driver was the first one, November 2013, then Ticket Beagles, February this year, and then the last one. And we will talk about all the things that turned out well or turned out bad, and how we were able to improve the following projects that we had. When we talk about an application or a project, when you see a 4-month timeline, this does not mean that we were coding for 4 months. No, it means that we went from 0 to the store, design, analysis, testing, everything. How did we start with Handed Driver? It is an application that we built for a client who has a company that provides technology services for logistics companies. Logistics companies are people who have goods at a certain warehouse, point A, and want to take it to point B with their trucks. They have an application that was built in Evolution 1 or Evolution 2, which is for web, and where they manage all the stock control, etc. And they were doing it by hand, like they did their own iOS application, sort of manually. Can you hear me? And the iOS application is the one that the truck drivers had, and they scanned the codes upon delivery. And everything they used to do in paper, they started doing it with the iOS. They wanted us to do the same in Android. And we felt confident. We were in 2013. GeneXus Evolution Beta 2 was already there. So we said, give us a list of features that you have and we can tell you whether this is doable or not. Can you work offline? Yes. Can we integrate with already developed services? Yes. With a manual syncing, you can send data to any data layer. You don't need to have just 1 KB. You need trucks to be constantly sending their geographic positions on a constant basis. There's an app for that. Can you scan barcodes, etc.? Yes. So we were able to do everything. And we started doing version number 1. And there was something where we had a problem, or where this was a near miss, I would say. And this near miss, this failure was that the client described the list of features that he wanted, and since we need to do whatever the customer requests us to do, we did this. We had a number of things that were not working well together. We worked for 1 month, and of course we could do everything that the iPhone application did, but it was not working jointly as the client requested. And here we saw what our mistake was. You can see it on the picture. Applications are not just a list of features. They are features that work as a team to solve a case for use. And this is what we had to learn and redo this first version of Handy Driver. The thing is that we were about to begin to develop everything from scratch and lose all the work we had done. But what we did was to borrow a methodology that was used in other projects from the company, which is to work in sprints, which is to have small features, small modules within the application and integrate them faster. The client sees it, validates it, it is corrected, and integration is much faster rather than having a whole version only then to have to redo it, as was the previous case. Of course, maybe if there's an expert in the audience and you hear that I have defined it this way, maybe I might be in trouble. But okay. So we divided this into 4 sprints. We managed to end it by February this year, and the application is working now both in Chicago and New York in 6 or 7 logistics companies with all of the truck fleets controlled by Android devices. As I said, now we are in February 2014. We already had a success case in our first offline application. And Ticket Beagles is then born. How was this? Ticket Beagles, actually that's partly in us because it's an association with a startup. Everyone's a startup over there. And it kind of solves a single scenario, which is I have tickets. It facilitates buying and selling tickets for events, whether sports, concerts, theater, etc. Maybe tomorrow we have a singer Arjona coming here. I have 2 tickets. Maybe if I'm not going to the concert, I post this on Ticket Beagles. I want to sell these tickets. Someone contacts me. We have an exchange outside the application, but all the contact is actually done through Ticket Beagles. In terms of the list of features, that's easy. We want to be able to upload a ticket. We want to contact the salesman. So once again, it's easy. Since we had already worked with Handy Drivers, we didn't want to underestimate this, and we wanted to be able to charm the user. For Ticket Beagle to be successful, people need to be able to use it and to want to use it. So we want people to be happy using Ticket Beagle. We want to invite them so that there's word of mouth, besides from a marketing campaign. And for that, we need to have the design. How did we work with this design? We picked up the phone. We worked with a design company here in Uruguay, and we told them, well, the application does this and that. I'm short of time. Please make it look nice. After struggling with designers because they didn't want to do that, we delivered our first Sprint 1. When it goes through the critical eye of our beta testers, which was my boss back then, we were told, okay, the application has color, looks nice, but I don't feel like using it. It's not appealing. We were very worried at our offices, and we were trying to think, where did we go wrong? We put everything in our checklist. We had worked with a good design. And after we talked to the design team we had worked with, they said we did the design, but not the design as part of the process, but design as just saying, okay, there's a design. And we had to change it. What did we change? Our mentality, our approach. The design is not a checklist. It's part of the process of software development. Once you have all the requirements that the application needs to have, you need to spend time by validating the design, obtaining feedback, same as we do with binary applications, but from a designer's point of view. How do we do this? By prototyping. You need to prototype fast and cheap. If we find errors in design or improvements that have to be done in the flow of application, it will be cheaper for us in terms of money and time. Just imagine that you had 2 weeks to build a guide, and then you discuss it, and when you start programming, you see that it doesn't work on your device. You have invested a lot of time in prototyping with code, but it's not working. So you need to prototype with cheaper formats, for example, paper, where you can see the flow of application, PDF, mock-ups, or Envision software that allow you to validate design before starting to program with the guides that you have. And the final result can be seen in the application. In the case of Ticket Beagles, we released it in June this year. And as you can see, it's an application with a UI, with a nice UI, which is intuitive. People want to use it. Now we have around 10,000 entries for events on the platform, and it's working in Chicago. We are hoping to release version 2 by the end of this year. It will be multi-city so that it can be used anywhere in the US, and then we would like to see whether we can go global. And we're not yet in June 2014, but we are near. We were working with Revenue, which was our flagship application, our star application. What was Revenue? It is a digital marketing company. What they do is they try to contact small sellers with big brands through digital marketing campaigns. And I don't even understand what that means, but actually what they do is, if I have a house where I sell Sony TVs and I know nothing about marketing and I don't have money for that, but I have a store that sells these TV sets, I partner with Revenue, and Sony through that platform says, well, where Franklin is located, I need more marketing presence, so let's give him some money so that he can rerun pre-made campaigns. So I, without having to invest my own money, I can invest in Google Ads, promote tweets in Facebook, and thus I make money and both parties win, both Sony and my own store, because they have more presence in terms of digital marketing. What were they doing before that? Well, Revenue did this with a web application that had been developed by its IT department that was outsourced in India, and everything was done through web. But they wanted to have a wider reach. They wanted to reach maybe Franklin, who is in his own store and maybe doesn't have time to do research. So they called us and they told us, let's have a mobile platform for Revenue Mobile. We were very optimistic. We had learned a lot. We knew that we had to build a joint application. We had learned that projects need to be made in small features and not in large versions. We knew that we had to integrate the whole design to the process. And we knew that we had to prototype fast. And the result can be seen in this picture. This is what we call the war room for Revenue. Here we spent several weeks trying to do what we were asked. If you see all those papers with red lines, we were not trying to solve a crime scene, but we were trying to do what we were requested to do. And somehow we were able to have the flow and the user experience of Revenue Mobile. This looks like a fairy tale because there are no challenges here. So where's the problem? Where's the obstacle? And the thing here was that we did have some problems and we faced some challenges, and they were that the client had needs that we needed to solve no matter what we were using for that. Designers had given us a state-of-the-art user interface. We had to be integrated with different services in the application that didn't have the XML or JSON format, but they had linear sort of things. What things did we have? Well, we were able to customize loading indicators. As you can see there, there's an icon that is appearing on the screen as data are brought from analytics or as data are synced with their web platform to display information in a more sophisticated way. You can see the effect of fonts. It's a more cosmetic sort of thing. And we even have the power to have complete screens with the extensibility GeneXus model. The screen in the middle is where we write a post for the revenue wall, and you have all the logos there, as you can see. It allows you to have suggestions within the text field. We need to have control of every touch that the user hit on the keyboard. But that screen, I'm talking about the middle screen, that screen is actually the UI that was used through a user control. But below that, we had all the strength from the events of the GeneXus panel. Going to Android is not complicated. We only have to have the UI layer and then execute all the events that were scheduled, because the code is only done once. And what do I want to prove? Extensibility is a feature. Maybe we haven't taken advantage as much as we should have nowadays, but we need to exploit it. And behind this, there's the power of a tool like GeneXus. The story I was going to tell you as such, now with Revenue, we have released this with iPhone, and we will be releasing it with Android after this event. The client is happy with us, and we are just expecting to have the second story to be able to tell it to you next time. I cannot have all the credit for this. GeneXus cannot have all the credit for this, actually, because throughout the year, We have worked with different companies such as Urraca, DevExtend, Simplifica, obviously with the support and development team from our tech for developing these applications. So what did we see? We saw that an application is not just a list of features. We saw that projects need to be organized into small sprints instead of having large versions. The design is part of the process that you need to prototype in order to validate the design, and you need to find the errors before coding. And extensibility is a feature that we need to exploit, and we don't need to be afraid of it. We are convinced that GeneXus is the tool for dealing with problems as diverse as the ones we saw with the application of handed driver, then applications such as ticket beagles that only has a single feature, but it needs to have a nice user experience, and then Revenue Mobile with all of the challenges that I mentioned before. Thank you very much.